We're live. Hey, and welcome to Thank You Five, a weekly show hosted by Strawdog Theater Company, where we bring you theater artists from around the world to have a conversation about theater in the digital age. With the spirit of gratitude and innovation, I am Johnard, Washington. I'll be your host tonight. I have been a theater maker as an actor and goer for all my life. I've been in Chicago for the past going on 12 years. I'm a Strawdog Theater company member as well as a Bramble Theater company member, um, represented by Stewart Talent. And yeah, I'm here to host the show. Looking forward to meeting all these people. Katie, I would love to meet you first. What's your story?
Hi, I'm Katie McLean. I'm also a Chicago-based actor, writer, director. I've been here for 30 years. I'm an ensemble member at Lifeline Theater, and I'm currently on a couple of podcasts. That's my deal.
Very nice.
Edward, what about you?
Hey, I'm Edward. You can call me Eddie, though. We'll keep it less formal. I'm actually originally from Kansas City. I'm a transplant here in Chicago, crashing into the market after their COVID hit. Pretty much took advantage of that. Used a lot of self-tapes, got a lot of recognition from agencies here. I'm with Big Mouth currently. And I actually was in my first play with Strawdog, Herschel and the Honka Goblins. Got to work with a lot of great different actors. Got to go dive into my culture. I'm actually part Jewish. And yeah, it was just really awakening of peace and great to just enjoy that. And definitely a welcome to the city. Hey, guys.
Welcome, man.
Oh, I'll pass it off to Travis.
Hey, I'm Travis Bedard. I'm currently in Madison, Wisconsin. I'm originally from New Hampshire by way of San Francisco, Austin, Texas, and the Twin Cities, as I just sort of circle the country, dropping into every possible theater community. I refer to myself as a multi-tool. I'm primarily a performer, Shakespeare and puppets, but I've also been a producer and blogger, and Kate Powers would call me a gadfly, sort of poking at every corner of theater and annoying anyone I can find. Ashley?
Hi, everyone. My name is Ashley Bellett. My pronouns are she, hers, and I teach costume design at Purdue University. I have been doing theater for about 20, 25 years, something like that. And I work as a designer and as a crafts artisan. So I like to say that I get to make the weird stuff, like the armor and the shoes and the stuff that no one has a pattern for. Right now, I am trying to finish my dissertation in interdisciplinary theater studies from Madison, Wisconsin. And I'm originally from Memphis, Tennessee. So yeah, I think that's the crew tonight.
Awesome. Edward, do you think I'm from Texas? Do you think Kansas City's barbecue is better? No, I'm just kidding. That is not one of the questions. The first, I look at everyone freaking out.
What just happened?
No, that is not a question. The first question is, what is theater to you? I typically start this with my answer first, but I'm curious if anyone wants to lead on this question today.
Okay, well, I will jump in.
Okay.
As a Memphian with full loyalty to Memphis barbecue.
Oh, no.
But let's talk about theater. So to me, so I like to study, or what I study, my area of research is in objects and material culture. So I think a lot about agency and the agency that we have and the agency that objects have over us, whether we like to admit it or not. So I think of theater as taking agency in a moment. So when someone or something takes agency, it could be over a space, it could be over a group of people. To me, that is a theatrical moment. So I'm going to stop there and yeah.
Awesome.
That's beautiful.
So I'm going to actually hop in because I feel less weird now. Thank you, Ashley. Because my my definition that I wrote down is that right now for me, theater is a designed live moment or series of moments intended to change the witness or witnesses, either intellectually or emotionally. And that can be an installation designed by a person that affects the witness. It can be one-to-one, it can be one-to-many, but it is a specifically designed moment meant to create that frisson in a person. And I think that when we're talking about, like they say on the West Wing, when we say it right, when we're saying theater with that sense of weight, that we mean that moment of change very specifically, and that everything else is just an art object trying to hang those moments in wherever they can.
Can I just piggyback on that? That I love that definition. But what I love about it is that it's basically irrepeatable in its pure form. Like it's never the same moment every night. It's maybe slightly different, but that is the part that makes it different from every other thing for me.
Just to piggyback off of that, I was going to say that creation portion of it, like everything you do is truly unique. Like that moment in time is truly, however, how do I say this? The energy you feel based off the choices that you make and your creativity are immediately felt. You immediately get that reaction. You immediately get a response or not, or lack thereof response. And because of that, you don't know what the next move is going to be. It's exciting. It's just a thrill. Like I hadn't been on the stage in so long because of COVID. And then to be back on that stage again, instead of on self-tapes and other things like that, I was just like, whoa, okay, that's right. You're here. This is real. This feels real. Like it's an experience you can't really compare to others. Like it was definitely, it's exhilarating to say the least.
The thing that I enjoy most about theater, I think last week I defined it as a piece of time performed where performers and the audience alike get to decide where they fit in the story, whether they agree with it or not, who they relate to, what in the story speaks to them or does not speak to them. But I feel a lot of energy going towards the presence of people. You know, in a movie, you control the pause button. You know, whereas in theater, unlike in a lot of other art forms, sans maybe music, where if there is a response from an audience, there's a pause that either energizes you or informs you or lets you know, what is happening, how people are receiving this. And you as an actor or someone in the scene or what have you moves through that energy. Whereas if you're in a ballet, you got the steps, you keep on going, when the applause is or the applause or what have you is anticipated, and you keep it moving. I find that quite often in theater we're energized by it. As a costume designer anticipates what's gonna what moments are gonna do that, or what's gonna make that more realistic or more what have you. And everyone's work is present in that sort of creation of life on stage. That's what I've got. Any other thoughts?
So I'm going to take that and say, yes, it is like kind of collecting a lot of what we've all kind of said is this idea of energy, right? And the aliveness of it. So I would say that we definitely agree with that. I'm going to take a second and push back a little bit on Travis.
Okay.
And talk about intentionality, because as a teacher, I don't prepare a script. I'll be real frank and say, sometimes I don't plan what I'm wearing, and I don't always have a lesson plan. in my brain. But don't tell my students that. So this idea of, but I would make the argument that the classroom is a very theatrical space, right? In a lot of ways. So then I guess this idea of intentionality, because the designer part of me says absolutely. And then the part of me that loves like postmodern and post-dramatic theater says it's the excitement is in theater is about what's not planned. Right?
Yeah.
And so that's where I'm going to kind of go, you know.
I don't actually disagree with that. It's why I chose designed rather than scripted, and why it's about, you know, you say you don't have a plan. You do have a plan. You don't necessarily have a script. You don't have. You have an intention.
I think then. There are days.
I can readjust my expectation, but I think that there's a difference between having every moment and every phrase scripted, because I think it's difficult even in theater to have that level of not even necessarily craft, that level of repeatability.
Yeah, that's robotic.
Is really difficult to achieve with life in it. But you have a learning objective that you're going through to the end, and you have a group of people that it is set to and for, and you have an intention for what they're going to walk out of the room with. You may not. Yeah, right. No, absolutely. No, keep the fingers crossed. But you have, however lightly designed it is a design, and I think also you would agree that that is very lightly theatrical, and that those moments, both the moment of frisson itself, you know, like they say in the West Wing when they say it right. That moment of theater, that moment of emotional or intellectual change is heightened in more tightly designed, more energized moments. It's why Patrick Page's Lear is more thrilling than your interaction at the grocery store, even though that is also designed and scripted and has an intention.
Edward, what are you going to say? Did you want to say something?
Yeah, I was gonna just comment on that. So first off, I definitely agree with the intentionality, but I wanted to challenge us, and you guys been quoting West Wing. I'm gonna go ahead and quote Shrek. It's like layers for me personally. The first airing of a show, the first performance night is way different than the last one. That first showing, I'm still like breaking loose of little nerves. There's certain steps, things that I'm intentionally trying to make sure I have right. And then by the end of the show airing and running, I'm on a whole different level. I'm like, oh, you know what? I need to interact with this person more. Oh, we had this one little bit that we worked on that was great. That audience loved it. Let's try to revamp that with this. I feel like as you get in there, the problems and solutions solve themselves. They present themselves. And you only know that once you're in there, once you're in that space. So to your point, Travis, you come in with the blueprint, you have the detail, you have the script kind of, but then once you're there, it's a whole different story. It's like being in a fight. Hey, you get punched in the mouth. Whoa, I had a plan, but that hurt. I need to do something else now. I didn't like that or whatever. And
I just want to reinforce the punched in the mouth. So when I was in the Twin Cities, I had the privilege of teaching Shakespeare to some incarcerated men in Moose Lake, and during one of our scene sharings with the rest of the incarcerated men, we would always do two. We would do one for the other incarcerated men, and we would do one for their friends and family in the visiting room. Mm-hmm. And the first time that this poor guy had ever been in front of an audience, he was doing a comedic monologue. And he got to the end of his first 4 lines and crushed his punchline, and 150 men lost it. And he had no idea what to do. that adrenaline rush
Yeah.
in him the first time, because you don't get to really do tech and dress, in a medium security prison. So it was really the first time he'd ever heard a room just explode, and you could just see, like, he had no idea what to do with himself. So yes, absolutely, the audience comes and gets you that first time, and you don't know.
There's like, what's another medium where that is even possible? I can't think of one. There probably is one. I can't think of one.
See, I would say music has that ability.
Yeah.
But you're I don't want to, if there's any musicians on this like live feed, I'm not slamming you at all. But like a musician can hit a note and like, like, fuck yeah. They're singing your favorite song, but like you are moving people on a stage, not only a stage, because like you said, a classroom can be theater, church can be theater, but on a stage people are just being human, and that applause, that laughter, that excitement comes from people saying, fuck yes, I'm on your side. I get that, I agree with you. Or the opposite, no, like, no, what are you doing? Why are you going in that room? Why did you do this?
And we have that experience when we're watching films and television, but we're alone. We're not. Yes, we're not with them. We don't get to
those people that we're watching.
Yep.
So perhaps it's the mutual experience of the audience.
That's part of it, for sure.
That is so different from so many other, experiences.
You were talking earlier about things that compared to this, all of you, not just you. And I was thinking, I'm on a new journey myself this year doing stand-up comedy. And I would say stand-up is close.
Yeah.
But for me personally, at least with the people I have around me and the amount of alcohol that's in my system when I'm up there, it's different. You have things to lean on like that. You don't go into this theater play like, okay, unless it's drunken Shakespeare, or something like that, where it's designed that way. But point being, that's the only medium that I can see is close to that, where you have that immediate feedback, that energy from the audience, and you're trying to get off, whatever your spiel is, your message, you have some type of message you're trying to get away. And depending on how the audience responds, you're either going to feel good, bad, or, whatever about that, and then have to move off of that vibration. One of my favorite comics, he brings a notepad and he just reads his jokes off the pad, and he's just like, oh yeah, you're not feeling that one?
Yeah.
Yep.
Garoppolo still does that.
Yeah, so like I just like love that part of it. But to that point, go back to theater, I'm like, man, I have a set mission though with theater as well. When I'm on that stage, like I have certain intentionality that's similar to the stand-up form, but still, I'm interacting with others. I have
you have a whole army of
exactly.
people.
It's a whole team. Like we're all depending on each other. Yeah. Whereas stand-up is like, hey, I'm here. It's one man show. Either I'm going to fail or burn on my own, or whatever.
You dressed yourself. You're
or
writing your own material. You're by your own up there.
We're talking a lot about the audience. Is it? I don't mean to ask this in like in a stupid way. Is it not theater to you guys if there is not an audience?
I think that it can still be theater.
Okay.
I mean, everyone up there with you is also your audience to some degree.
Hey, man.
You're not formal, but they're observing what you're putting out there, and you them.
Yeah, no, I agree with Katie. There's never not an audience. Even if you are experiencing installation by yourself, there's always enough dissociation in that moment that you are also interrogating your own response to things. Mm-hmm. You become both a performer of that moment and the audience of that moment, even if you're alone.
So while I agree with you, where is the kinetic energy that we've been talking about that needs to happen between two people?
I think
if I fundamentally agree with you, Explain this part to me.
Yeah.
I think
It's in the design. Right. The energy comes from how the designer of the experience, how the designer of that moment is pushing you through that moment. They are creating that energy with you. So you're in a space that, say, narratively, another person has inhabited and you're looking at their letters. The designer has created the letter, which is creating an emotion in you. They have spaced out the narrative in those letters and the actual physical spacing of those letters, changing how you move through the space. And so you begin responding to the space as the other performer and to the character in the object as the other characters in the room. So the design of it begins driving your energy, both as the performer and as the audience, as they change you emotionally.
See, that's my language. It's the object. It's the
agency that
thing.
objects affect on us. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was beautiful, and just I just want to say that was, I almost got a tear over here.
That was beautiful, Travis.
And also, I have to say, just while we're talking about objects, I love, as a performer, threading games through a performance that doesn't actually involve them otherwise. And
What do you
things
mean?
like possession of an object through a show. You leave an object on stage and pull it off for you. It comes into your pocket. You have to leave it back on stage in the next scene. When I played Falstaff, don't tell Ben who was playing my Hal, but I made it my goal to touch him, just incidental touch him as many times as possible. How close can I physically get to Hal and touch him in every scene? And so it literally, you're playing the meta, but in the actual physicality of the scene, Falstaff is literally chasing Hal around the stage as his meta son. But I love doing it with objects. I love passing a coin, or tapping someone's sword, or
In
playing
30 years
games
of
with
performing,
friends.
I've never been able to be the type of actor who can play those games on stage without ruining the show. But I did make it a point in the last show that I did, which was my first show in like 3 years. It was a very tight-knit cast. I did make it a point to have a goodbye moment with everybody during our last performance, and managed to not, pull the Tetris piece that made everything fall down by doing that. But yeah, that is also, I think, a uniquely theatrical experience.
There's a book called The Stage Life of Props by Andrew Sofer. And it was kind of my introduction to object theory. And it is fascinating because it really does talk about the life that these bits and pieces have, and how the audience connects to props that we don't even realize. Yes, they talk about the Chekhov's gun, but Desdemona's handkerchief and all these other things. And it's that okay, I'm going to come here from a costume designer. You put on a costume that I've pulled from stock, 16 people have already worn that. And that costume is carrying the history of those performances. And on some level, it's carrying the energy of those performances. And someone in the audience is like, oh my God, I recognize that dress. And, and it's like, it carries its own history with it. Not to harp on the object thing, but there's just so much on
absolutely harp on the object thing.
Yeah.
The onion joke about the rumpled raincoat returning for its 16th season in the community theater is dead on. And there's an honest affection in that audience community for seeing things like that and having it come back. And I think
thing.
honestly, you get to cheat a little bit, right? There's a company of Shakespeareans who work at Richard Garriott's Curtain Theater in Austin, whose first love was LARPing before they became what I will not at all derisively call a legitimate theater company. but their love is for historically accurate costumes, but they keep reusing them. And so as the company and their audiences come back, I'm not wearing, John of Gaunt's costume. I'm wearing Jimmy's costume from 2 shows back. And that's part of what you're living in. And that's how you start building the community around those shows and around those companies. I love it. I think that's great.
And it's really kind of beautiful because it happens with performers too, right? People start to come and see their favorite performers, and each of you carries your past performances, your identities forward with, and so that creates an energy as well, between you and an audience member you've never met.
I had I got to play the same role twice in 2 different shows.
What role was it?
My last show was Miss Holmes Returns at Lifeline Theater, and I played Sherlock Holmes, and I played Sherlock in Miss Holmes in 2016. We were supposed to do the second one in 2020, but of course something happened and we didn't get to do the show then. We ended up doing it last fall. And coming back in, my Watson was the same, my Mycroft Holmes was the same. So coming back into that space with those people and the shorthand that we had with each other right off the bat, first of all, saved us tremendous amounts of time in rehearsal, but let us start at a place of familiarity and comfort and knowing each other's boundaries and knowing where we can test each other and push each other. And that was a very special experience.
Just to piggyback off that, I don't think we've mentioned this yet, but there is definitely power in the understudy. One thing I loved about my understudy for my last role was just throwing ideas back and forth, seeing how they made a different choice than I made, that I just naturally made, or I thought was natural, but maybe I was influenced by something else from outside that I didn't even see as an outside influence until I talked to them. And they're like, oh, well, actually, I grew up like this, so I thought maybe this would be, just things like that. And so if we're talking about, we were talking about earlier about theater versus movies and stuff, there's no understudy,
Yeah.
There's no understudy performance that you go to and cheer them on just as proudly as they cheered you on. There's none of that. It's just, hey, that's the moneymaker. We're going with them. Stunt double, I guess, is the closest thing, but that's no, it's not the same. With that being said, like I said, my understudy, great. And got seen them live. I was just like, oh, wow, they did that. And I've been doing this whole time. I might, maybe I need, it made me question little things, but then other things, just being honest, I'm like, I wouldn't have done that, and it's just like, you get to see the different levels, and there's no, again, in the theater form, there's no wrong choice. You might get a reaction you don't like, but there's no true wrong choice. And there's beauty in that.
Yeah, there's the choice that haunts you, and there's the choices that don't. Yeah.
Right. But usually I'm a very optimistic person, if you couldn't tell from my personality. All those bad moments that have happened to me, I'm like, that was there for me to learn from, to be ready for this moment coming up. And it always ends up, it doesn't ever happen when you want it. And I don't know if there's any God-fearing people, but whatever you believe in, they always say it comes right when on time. Yeah. It's never on your time. It's never on your time. But it's best to be prepared for when that time comes, no matter what.
Yeah.
And that's what I move forward with, in that energy.
All right. I'm going to move to the next question. How has technology helped you with live theater? I feel like, Travis, you're going to be the first to speak on this one. I just have a feeling.
I'll go first just for funsies. I love technology, just me personally. And so I've been mucking around with technology all of my theater life. We started live streaming shows and events in 2009. And being able to share broadly changed how we thought of ourselves as theater makers. We talk about nobody being in the audience. It's really hard to take yourself seriously as a theater maker when there's a half dozen people in the house. And you begin to take that as a reflection of your worth as a maker. If instead, even if the experience is changed, it isn't a one-to-one match, but if you can share that experience with others and get a real reflection of what you're doing as a theater maker and share it more broadly, I was able to grow a lot more quickly as a producer and performer because I was able to get a lot broader feedback from folks that I didn't have to overcome my own failures as a producer to get in the room. My strengths as a marketer shouldn't determine my abilities as a theater maker, but for a lot of folks, they really do. And so being able to broaden that audience and sort of reassess what we're doing. No, I'm on the right path. No, I'm not crazy. You know, this actually looks like something. I'm on a path to somewhere. So for me, really specifically, it's about audience and not even audience size, just being able to get trusted other eyes on the work I'm doing. You know, aside from being able to pipe authors into rooms as we're developing new plays, or from the one moment, you know, I'll name drop when we did 7 Jewish Children for World Theater Day in 2009. We live streamed it, and the struggling author from England tuned in and sent me an email later. And getting a complimentary email from Carol Churchill on your directing will make a couple of decades for you.
That'll do it. That'll do it.
So there's kind of two sides of this for me as a technician and designer. I mean, everything I do every day is technology, right? Sewing with a needle is technically technology. So I couldn't do what I do without it. I admit that I'm a little bit of a Luddite, so I love to steer my students and my colleagues toward technology that can help them, but it is something that's still a little bit beyond my grasp. There's a fear that I have with technology, and not to take this question and turn it completely, but you know, the expectation of what we can accomplish in live theater visually, sometimes that makes me a little nervous because I see young people really unable to distinguish their expectations of film and theater and what something should look like and what it should be able to do. And I'm starting to see that in young directors as well. I want this to happen, and there's no like physics works, and I wish it would happen, but physics works. And so I respect technology with every fiber of my being, but there's a part of me that like it gets me a little nervous. Like my neck muscles get a little tense about it. So I'm just gonna throw that out there.
I mostly on the stage in my theater career, so technology hasn't directly helped me much, but I did direct an adaptation of Watership Down back in 2011, and we had a very strong theme of differentiating the rabbit's storytelling world versus the rabbit's real world, which is very dark and dangerous. And but they have this incredibly rich lore about their god El-Ra and stuff, and we used projection melded with shadow puppetry to really bring a different feel to the stage during those moments. So I'm a very form follows function type of person, and that was the only way we could find to really melding together with lighting and sound to really feel like 1 minute you're in a fantasy land, you're in a story within a story, and the next minute you're back and you have nowhere to live. It was really really powerful addition to the piece.
You know, you're right. Like technology can jump into a story and be really surprising and just change your sense of reality. That's so true. That's so true.
I think Ashley, you made a really good point about the expectations that a younger audience may, or a younger director may want in a theatrical space. Um, and it made me think of, I was an understudy at Steppenwolf's. It's like one of their young audience shows, and the play was called The Compass, and the whole premise of this show was there's an app that you can use in order to help you decide what to do in any given situation. And so they use technology to create like the interface of this app. You ask the app like, should I do this or should I do that? The app says like, oh, you know, based on the information that I have of you, you would do this, and this would be the outcome. Um, uh, I think that it worked in that situation because visually, kids relate to apps. Kids relate to being on their phone. Kids relate to relying on, you know, your iPhone or your Android to do all the thinking for you. You know, another example I immediately think of is um, in The Heights, not the movie, the stage version, when all the lights go out in the club and everyone's phone comes on, and everyone relates to that because that's something that we have, and it's one of those moments where like that I thought like, oh shit, I guess I don't see a lot of screens on phones. And I think that because Gen Zs certainly are born into a world where screens are always present. When you remove that privilege or that comfort or whatever you like to call it, it doesn't seem like real life in a way that I think theater has always been real life, or a presentation of real life, or some sort of or fantasy, but with real people. You know, I think that, you know, it's our job as creators to help with that. Like we have to change with it. I don't know what that looks like. I don't have the answer to it, but I think a lot of it comes from, this is the way we operate. You know what I mean? This is what I know. And we help them with that. And that could also mean like, you know, telling them we don't get that. We don't get that luxury in this hour and a half, 2 hours, or what have you.
And there's some incredible theater companies that are really doing that. They're using apps in an audience interactive, responsive kind of way. Blast Theory, I'll be honest with you, one of the ones I'm thinking of, like some European theater companies, but even the Worcester group here is doing, you know, so it's like, I think you're right. I think it empowers our audience and grows our audience in a way. You know, and of course, this makes me think we're all thinking of technology in a different way. Just the word technology itself is so broad.
Yeah, that's true.
So,
that's very true.
I think Johnard, what we're talking about is the difference between doing the sorts of projects that we grew up wanting to do and that we love best, and stretching towards the next thing, and designing specifically for an audience rather than for us, like designing that experience for people.
Yes, I think I was piggybacking off of Ashley's comment of like, you know, of like the disconnect. I think I was just
playing. No, absolutely.
Fair point. But I think you made a good point.
Please don't hear that as criticism. That's I am literally where I am right now in my own personal practices as performers. I want to draw a circle in the dirt and tell stories. Like I am so analog right now. Like there is absolutely no judgment in that. But in terms of bringing modern reality, bringing, you know, straight mimesis to the work we're doing, we either need to design it specifically, or we need to get Gen Z on our stages to be doing that for us with a more native understanding. And it's part of the disconnect between, mindfully creating art objects and building things that sell and sustain us financially. For me, you're not going to bring me in to do, your hot youth show to sell a ticket. But I can absolutely draw a circle in the dirt and tell a story and keep them for 2 hours. Mm-hmm. Those are very different things. And, one is a saleable art object, and one, I think, I'm biased, but I think is an interesting experience that one can have. Let's build a fire and tell a story. Yes. But that's not really a saleable art object in the same way, and one just can't sustain a living, in the industry that way.
All right, I think I'm gonna move to the next question. It sounds like me copping out. It's like, let's not talk about that anymore. What makes you all keep doing it, doing whatever it is you do, in your capacities to the theater? Eddie?
That feeling, man. I knew it. See, I knew you were gonna call me first. Nice. No, that feeling, man. I honestly, it's like an itch. It's like
paycheck.
I take something for that twice a week. No, I'm just kidding. No, but for real, like it's this innate feeling within me. Like every time I'm near a stage in some type of capacity, I have a good feeling. Like my partner, she sees it in me. When we got here and I started I got an agent and finally started getting auditions and everything, my mood, everything was just better. Like it's something that's always moved me personally. And I feel like as a younger person, the way I would get attention was telling stories, was telling my story, whether it was like, what happened at lunch that day to my mom, but I would make it really theatrical, like I really had to wait in line for 4 hours. Little moments like that, like I can still look back at little Eddie and be like, oh, we've grown. We're putting this to application now. Oh, we're actually intentionally moving in this path and it feels good. And there's no arguing with that ever. Like obviously this is the real world, so I have to do certain things to make money on a regular consistent basis. But I got many talents. This is just one of them. But this one's definitely not going away ever.
Katie?
That was such an inspiring answer. I hate to go after it because my answer is I can't fucking stop. I keep trying to find other things to scratch the same itch. And I play hundreds of hours of role-playing games every year. I'm on a podcast that is entirely a role-playing game. I keep doing all this stuff. And yet nothing is the same as being on stage with people you trust and making someone laugh or whatever, getting that moment that Eddie is chasing. It's close, but it's not the same. So I keep trying to quit and I keep getting something that makes me come back. I'm Al Pacino in The Godfather Part 3. That's me.
Yeah. I absolutely relate to that, Katie. When I saw this question that Hank posted, I immediately James Baldwin has like a lecture or like a piece of writing called The Artist's Struggle for Integrity. And in it, he says like, I didn't ask to write. No one asked me to write. I just do it. And I hope that in my doing it, that, the reader reads my pain and insofar makes their pain a little less. And I think that's true of being an actor. Like I hope that in my doing and in my pursuit that like that we're able to connect somehow, even though we're two different people, and that you experience a little bit of my joy, a little bit of my pain, a little bit of my love, or what have you. There's that. And then there's also that like feeling that sometimes happens in rehearsal, and it quite often happens when there is an audience that you feel is with you, where there's this sort of just out of body experience that helps you with a choice that just clicks and is perfect, and you don't feel like it's yours, but like maybe it's all the rehearsals that you've had, or like finally the truest understanding of that moment happens, and it just feels out of body, where it's just like where you step back and just like, whoa, what the fuck was that? And it's almost like chasing it as a drug, you know what I mean?
Transcend.
I want to go back to that always.
Yeah. I find that in writing. I think which is a solitary activity, of course. But I find that in writing, when you reach that sweet spot when you're telling a story in words, whatever script or prose, whatever, where the characters start doing things completely of their own accord, and you're like trying to rein it all in. You can reach that point. That's the equivalent of really being in a moment on stage that is where you're getting that feeling of something else egging you on to make that really specific choice.
Ashley or Travis, to you. Travis, you have just like devilish grin on your face. What's behind
Well, before
that?
Travis starts, I'm gonna throw out a word, and it is discovery.
Yeah.
Discovering your cat behind you.
I know. Sorry. The consistency of discovery is, to me, the exciting part.
Yeah.
And that is the reason why I come into work every day.
Yeah.
And now I'll toss it to Travis.
Can you talk about how that, like how especially for people who may understand what it may be for an actor or director, like as a designer, like what does a discovery look like for you?
Someone can mention a play, and all of a sudden I have these ideas in my head. I have images of things that were not there 5 minutes ago. Someone can mention a play that I've never heard of, and now I have something to read when I get home. It's like part of it is from the collaborative nature of it, just being surrounded by creative people, and some of it is the act of making, right? Because I am also a maker, and so I'm making something and the material doesn't do what I want it to, and so I discover that this project's going to go in a different way, and I'm going to have to figure something else out, So to me, that's what it comes in physical forms, it comes in inspirational forms, it comes in theoretical forms, but it's always coming,
Yeah, absolutely.
Travis.
Yeah, Travis.
Sorry, I love thinking about it in terms of discovery. That's a part of what absolutely feeds staying in. It's finding the next thing. It's messing around with VR. What can we do? What is this new space? I don't have to build flats. It's just a polygon, but it's finding the new plays. It's finding a performer I didn't know who does this thing that I love. But the devilish grin is because for me, the addictive portion is audience connection always. The first moment that came to mind, which is why it was devilish rather than cute and nice. I was playing Katurian, and in McDonough's The Pillow Man, and Katurian, for those who don't know the play, tells a number of incredibly dark stories throughout the play, and they are, in our production and in most productions, they're straight up direct address to the audience. And the last story is really horrific and about harming a child, and there's a beat in the story where Katorian just stops and says, "And then it began." And you take a beat. And the rest of the story begins to fill in for the audience. And a woman in the audience, swear to God, she was sitting fourth row, second seat. I can see her right now. She just said out loud, "Oh my God." And why would I not do this?
Yeah.
Having that sort of connection with folks in the middle of a story and knowing the feeling that you're putting in their body is irreplaceable. I don't know another way to do that. So here we are.
I just want to say hats off to Hank. That's a beautiful question. And these, we're going to try to get to this next one really quickly. If you have, what is the most unusual project you've ever been a part of? Unusual.
Well, I'm so sorry. My cat has captured one of my hair clips, and so there's a rattling in the background. I apologize.
Never apologize for the cats.
Never.
I keep putting myself on mute trying to, but so one of the things that a project that I worked on, it was at the Santa Fe Opera, and we did an entire show. We built the entire show out of Tyvek, which Tyvek is a construction material. It's what they put around houses to keep out the weather when they're building them. So it's a cross between paper and plastic. It's like a plasticky paper, and it comes in different weights. But I was excited about it. All the stitchers were like, God save us, right? But the thing that was cool about it, and the thing that was unusual about it, and the reason why I always bring this show up when I'm talking to my students is all of the laws of sewing that I'd ever learned were no longer in play. Because the minute you punched a hole in that thing, that hole was there forever, right? And if you wanted to stitch something together, 9 times out of 10, gluing it would make a prettier seam than sewing it. And we could print on it, but we couldn't really paint it because the paint would fleck off. It was a really interesting, experiment in everything we thought we knew. And then the whole point of using it was that the show, it was Candide, forgive me, it was Candide. And the idea was that everybody was wearing the pages of the books. And so they were supposed to look like paper. But the artisans at Santa Fe are so stinking skilled that it all looked like clothing. Mm. And no one knew it was paper. And it was like this wild, roller coaster of, oh my God, we put all this in and people don't even realize what we've done, and so it was just a really fantastic project where, again, everything we thought we knew, we didn't know anymore. So it was cool.
Katie?
I worked on a play well over 20 years ago that was about quantum physics. It was a romance set at Fermilab, and we moved forward in time through Act 1. And Act 2 was each scene slightly different, moving backwards in time based on an event that happens at the end of the first act that changes everything that came before it, which apparently is some quantum physics theory thing that I didn't understand at the time and don't understand any better now. But it was such an incredibly difficult acting challenge to know at any moment in time where you were in that play. And if the thing had already happened, or it was so easy to just slip into the other scene from the other act at any time. It was a great play written by Penny Peniston called Now Then Again, which I highly recommend anyone going out and finding and reading. But that was a very unusual experience for me.
I can't imagine. That sounds incredible.
I don't really have an unusual experience, but it was definitely exciting and definitely different. I was a puppet. I was 3 different characters. I was a choir member, and I played the clarinet and guitar all in the same play.
That is every show at Lifeline Theater.
Right. And for me, the only thing I was nervous about was playing the clarinet because, of course, I told them I could play this thing, and I hadn't played it since the 8th grade. And
Hey,
Like, yes.
I was like, oh, did I get this part only because I play the clarinet? Oh, that's
Probably.
not
I had to learn
I've
to
made
play
a
the
terrible
saxophone
mistake.
once.
Oh, but to that point, Discovery, going back to that, guess what? I pulled up my old notes. I got my embouchure right again.
Yeah.
I got on some YouTube videos and started going through, and it started coming back to me. I'm like, I still got this.
That's
I
sweet.
still got this. My choir teacher my band teacher would be so proud of me from back in junior high.
I love it.
I killed that.
I guess I'll jump in. I was in a play called The Walk Across America for Mother Earth, which is a Taylor Mack play. He is a queer playwright, very unapologetic, very in your face, and this play was nothing short of that. Our set was literally made of trash, like recycled trash, like cans. And it was about a group of protesters, and my character was a rat. Every single character, I forget if it was intentional in the play, or if it was the costume designer Izumi. Ugh, I love you. We were just in the
Izumi,
craziest drag. Like, it was like literally you had to get there an hour early just for costumes. I had antlers. I had just our reviews were insane. People were like, how can you watch people like this? This isn't. It was just unapologetically queer in your face. Instead of intermission, we made the audience stay and do a talent show. It was absolutely bonkers. It was insane, and it was just radical queers protesting, like destroying Mother Earth.
How do people respond to that
That's
ask?
what I want to know. Yeah.
We're always so afraid to ask anything of the audience for fear that they'll just freeze up and walk out. How did they?
I think, I think Taylor Mack knew what he was doing.
Yeah.
People either loved the shit out of it or they hated it.
Yeah.
There was very little, like, there's no way in the world that somebody left the show and was like, oh, like, what do you want to eat? Like, it had to be like everything about it was just like, what? It was absolutely crazy. And it asked, like, you fully commit even though you knew you were like having a baby, and like it was Bonnie Metzger directed it. It was awesome and very unusual.
Fantastic.
I think this is gonna do it. How you feeling?
I'm seeing this question from Kyle coming up in the queue, and like that is not a 2-minute question, Kyle, and you should know better. That's ridiculous.
I mean, does everyone have time? Does anyone gotta go? Like right now?
No,
Okay,
somebody may walk in the middle of this, but no, I don't have to go.
We'll be quick with it then. Travis said industry is art versus commerce. Something you can speak of in 2 minutes?
Are you going to
I said that I could, so I'm going to go with the short answer.
Okay.
I don't think it's a versus. I think it is a set of choices. The industry is about making money, and you have to make choices about what is saleable versus what may necessarily be interesting art or your favorite art. You need something that is repeatable and popular, because you are in a seat rental business and you need people in them. And that doesn't change who you are as an artist. It changes what you're doing for a job.
It's survival is what you're saying.
It's survival. You're doing, I mean, look, I'm an IT guy during the day. That doesn't change that I do early modern theater and bunraku puppetry. Those are the things that if you ask me who I am, those are who I am. It doesn't change what I am as an artist, that during the day I'm, troubleshooting hardware for data scientists. But you need to rent those seats, and you need to rent lots of them because we need to pay people fairly. And so you have to change what your decision matrix is about what you're putting out there.
And time. That was good.
I find this it's so hard to talk about this because so many of us live in this place of theater that you are constantly on the edge of devastation. And so there's no freedom to fail. And you need failure to find that thing that puts people in seats and keeps them coming back, that's repeatable and stuff. You need that freedom and that flexibility to be able to mess things up terribly and learn from it next time. And for 30 years, I've never been part of any project that had that freedom to, tank. And I find that this is why this is not a 2-minute question for me. So I'm just going to zip it now and somebody else go on.
Ashley?
So I'm just going to admit that my privilege is that I work in educational theater. And that is only one minuscule part of my privilege. I'm just going to say that, but that is my privilege in this conversation. And part of our budget comes from whether or not we sell seats, frankly, and not all institutions are like that, but it is for us. So it is important that we sell seats, but it is really important to us as instructors that we make sure that our students can fail. And I will be frank, they have. They do all the time. And I'm going to go ahead and just
they're safe there. They should. No one's going to blackball them if they fail there.
But the thing is they're still going to design another show. They're still going to act in another show. They're still going to, because the point is not in an educational institution, the point is that they have another opportunity, that they learn from it, right? So that's just to kind of respond to what Katie was saying. I again, I admit that this is my world in a very specific one. To respond to the question, I have not thought this through fully, so I don't know if I fully believe it, but I'm going to throw it out there. Art is not controllable. Commerce is controllable. And I don't know exactly what that means, but I'm kind of thinking about the relationship between those two things and how one exerts pressure on the other. And I just wanted to throw that out.
No, I'd agree with that. I'd say definitely art. When you say it can't be controlled, I feel like the idea has to get out there. It's in you. You're going to get it out one way or another. How that looks, now that might be defined by your commerce and your resources that you have at your availability. But that art's coming out regardless.
Yeah.
But let's just say a definitely $100,000 budget versus a $1,000 budget is going to make that art look a little different.
Thank you, Cirque du Soleil.
So you can definitely throw a lot of money behind something and make it look. That's back to the technology thing. If all of a sudden you have a budget for certain effects, certain things to create that imagery for your audience, to make that more real, then all of a sudden that audience is pulled there more naturally. Because like you said, a younger audience, they need all that stimulation. They need all that because they get it every day. They have it all the time attached to them. So when it goes away, it's like, where's my fix? This ain't it. I'm sitting down for too long. I'm on a plane. What is this? So to get through to them, we have these mediums that we use, like technology, to cross over. So yeah, back to the original this question. Yeah, I agree with you. Art is going to get out there one way or another, but that commerce does help facilitate how it is distributed and how the audience receives it.
Oh, I love that. Commerce as a facilitator.
Yeah.
That's really interesting, actually. As a facilitator for art.
Just made it up. It's crazy.
I wish practically that was how we all had decided that's how it would work 100 years ago. Thomas was facilitating art. Yeah.
Well, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. The time is up. I want to thank you guys for watching. Thank you, Ashley, Travis, Eddie, and Katie for being a part of this. You guys are great. Kyle, thank you for having a beautiful beard and producing this show and creating it. Thank You Five is made possible by Strawdog Theater Ensemble members and everyone. We can do this only by the generous donations from our community. You can find out about donating or becoming a Strawdog member and helping us continuously by supporting our work. Visit us at strawdog.org. Please submit your questions if you want to be a part of this. Visit us at strawdog.org. If you have a friend that you think would be great for the show, visit the page. Thank you, and thanks for watching, guys.
Thank you.
Awesome. Oh my God, my legs started cramping on the exit speech. Oh my God. I worked out legs today. Oh my God.